Hey everybody, good morning. How are you? So good to see you. Happy Thursday. I really hope that you're well in your part of the world. It's a beautiful day out in my part of the world. I hope the same for you. It's a great day. I'm excited. I've had my coffee. I'm ready to go. I hope you guys are too. You guys know how passionate I am about data science, so it's really nice to be able to spend some time with you. I'm sorry that I started the stream a little bit later today. My service that I use to restream to multiple platforms is acting funny. So I'm actually just going to be streaming on IG today, and I'll post the video later on YouTube and other sources. But for today, we're only going to have people from Instagram available on the chat or whatnot. The chat window should still be available. As soon as somebody types into something into the chat, we're going to see it pop up. So we're still going to be able to read each other's chats, but it will just be Instagram for today. And that's okay because, there's a lot of great people on Instagram, lots of really good questions that always come from there. So look forward to spending time with you the next hour with you guys. So you guys know how we start. Actually, hold on a second. I just realized I made a mistake. I have to enable my live. Okay, so there we go. There's our chat. I had to enable one more setting, but there's our chat. We can see all our Instagram sections. So glad to see people are already participating. As always, you guys know how we start. We start with our global roll call. Please let me know the city, state, province, country that you're from. I think it's wonderful for all of us to see the global nature of data science, to see that you're not alone in your studies and in your practice of data science. So let's go ahead and get that started in the chat. You guys know that how much I love seeing that because I love traveling. So it's always exciting for me to see where people are checking in from. So please go ahead, put that in the chat, your city, state, province. I already see some questions in the chat. We're going to get to them, but we're going to start with the roll call. And then I also like to start with an opening note just to kind of kick us off, maybe give us something to think about, maybe something for people to, kind of digest and whatnot. Or maybe you want to comment on in the chat, would love to hear your feedback. So one of the things I would like to start off with is I want to talk about flexibility in data science teams. Because, when we're on this chat or when people approach me, people are always asking me, well, should I go for a data analyst role? Should I go a data engineer? Should I go for this data science role? But the reality out there, at least in most teams that I have seen, most places that I have worked, is that data science teams are still very small. Not every company is making these big, massive investments into data science teams. You hear about, oh, Google has hundreds of data scientists and OpenAI has hundreds. And so not every company is like that. So I'm bringing this up to encourage you to not be so locked in to, well, I'm going to be a data analyst, I'm going to be a data engineer. The reality is that you might have to be all of those because your team might only be 3-4 people, 6-7 people. 7 people is kind of a big team for data science nowadays. So when you're joining a team that small, it's not always like, well, I'm just a data engineer and that's all I work on. You're going to be asked to work on other things. You're going to have to be flexible in that. So, on the one hand, that's great for your career because it means that you're going to be exposed to a lot of other things. On the other hand, you should also view it as an opportunity to kind of, apply for some of those positions that you think you may not be qualified for. But, maybe the advertisement says they're looking for a data scientist, but what they're really looking for is something else or somebody who can be flexible. So don't be afraid to, expand your skills, learn more about, if you're more of a modeling guy, go ahead and learn more about creating data pipelines because you might need to do that. You might be hired for a modeling position, but guess what? There's no dedicated data engineer. So now you're also doing the data engineer. You're also doing more of that pipeline work, right? So be flexible, be ready to take on those roles, be ready to be part of a small, nimble team. It's just one of those things that's going to be required of you. And by the way, you should also know that this is probably even more important if you're going to go into data science as a consulting role. either on your own or to like through a big company like PwC or some other sort of consulting firm. Consulting work is really a lot of solo work. It's rare when you're working as a team of consultants on the same client project. A PwC consultant is $200, $300 an hour. There's not many companies that can afford to bring on a whole team of 5 people to work on a single project. They might just be able to afford one person, and that's you. So be flexible. Don't be dogmatic in your roles as far as like, well, this is all I do. I'm just a modeling guy. There's plenty of work out there, and it's going to require for you to wear different hats. So extend your skills, be ready for that, stay ready. But I just wanted to kind of share that note to kick us off, because I think it's important to kind of just think about these things, especially so many people looking for jobs and things like that. So looking back on my chat, I'm only seeing a couple of location check-ins, but I'm seeing a lot more people in the chat. So come on, guys, let me know where you're from. Let me know the city, state, province that you're checking in from. I love seeing that. So please let me know. Okay. All right. So I'm going to skip over some of the questions that I'm going to come back to. Dada Ashish is checking in for us from India. Good to see you, Dada Ashish. I am Gaurav. I am from Bengaluru, India, learning AI ML through Great Learning. Well, great. Welcome. Good to see you here. 6 feet underground. I am so sorry, my friend. I know you support the streams. Unfortunately, there is a problem with my restreamer this morning. I'm going to have to investigate after this, but I use a restreaming service so that I only send one signal and then it sends it out to all the platforms. For some reason, that service is failing this morning. So I'm only on Instagram today. I'm going to take this chat and I'm going to post it on YouTube. Because I know I do get viewers there, so I'm sorry that you were waiting there, but I don't know what's going on. I need to look into my service, but for today I'm only streaming on Instagram. So thank you for coming over from there. Aaron SVG writes, greetings from Germany, Berlin. Wonderful. I've never made it to Germany. I've traveled through plenty of Western Europe, but I've never quite made it to Germany. Would love to go there someday. So thank you so much for checking in. Chiheb MH writes, hi from, is that Turkey? You're testing my geography skills. I believe that's the Turkish flag. The icon looks a little funny on my end within my OBS, but I believe that's Turkey. I'm also looking over here on my Instagram chat, but I believe that's Turkey. Correct me if I'm wrong. But thank you for joining us. Emil says that you're from Zeeland, Netherlands. Nice. I don't think we've had a Netherlands watcher, at least not somebody who told us they were from Netherlands. So welcome. Currently USA, well, first of all, it's from Shashankasi. Currently USA, Columbus, Georgia, working right now and have you live on Insta. Wonderful. Glad to see you. Thanks. Don't get fired, though. You never know how people feel about social media, especially if you're using their Wi-Fi, right? They can detect that. So don't get caught there. But thanks so much for joining in. Chihab MH. Oh, it's Tunisia. Excuse me. Okay, well, you tested my geography skills, and I didn't do so well. So Tunisia. Well, I think you're our first watcher from Tunisia. So thank you so much for joining in. Mustafa says, hi, Dennis. Hey, Mustafa. I think you're our friend in Rabat, if I remember right. So good to see you, my friend. Thanks for being such a great supporter. This is Vaibhav. This is Vaibhav. Hey, from India. Hey, Vaibhav. Hey to you too. What part of India? India is a large country, so let me know what part of India you're from. And Zub says, hello from Warsaw, Poland. Nice. Very cool. Lots of interesting stuff happening in Poland. Huge tech scene in Poland from what I've seen. I've had some colleagues in Poland. I've worked for companies that have tech centers there. So lots happening there. What do you do there in Poland? Are you in the tech sector? Are you a student? Let me know, because I know that I used to work for Citi. Citi does a lot of hiring there. I believe also Goldman Sachs has a fairly large presence in Poland. But let me know what you do there. Couple more questions. Okay. Okay, Shashanki, I thought you were working on site, but Shashanki shares perks of work from home. Don't need to worry about what they are tracking. Well, okay, you're very right. So thank you so much for having me on Instagram. Love to see the participation. I know I've had some other people who tell me that maybe they just have the audio on. They have like their phone upside down, but they're listening to the audio. So, if that applies to some of you out there, thank you so much for joining in. Emil says, actually, I am from Bulgaria, but studying in the Netherlands. Okay, very cool. Yeah, love to see the international movement across students and whatnot. Really cool to see again, just the global nature of data science. So much interest around the world. Himstay, good to see you again. I know you've been a great supporter, and hi again from Knoxville. Well, great. I assume you guys are in the middle of that heat wave, right? A lot of the middle of America is in a massive heat wave right now, so I hope you're staying cool out there. This is Vibob says, I'm a student living in Mumbai. Well, great. Good to see you. Syed Salman Assi says, hello from United States. Well, what part of the United States? It's a big country. Let me know what part you're joining us from. Karthi says, hello, Dennis. Hey, Karthi, good to see you, my friend. I know you've been on here before. Let me remember. I think you are from Tamil Nadu. Did I get that right? I think that's where you're from. I think you've joined us from there before. Let us know where you're from. Or rather, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're from Tamil. Neil Anash says, hey, Dennis. Hey, Neil, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Syed Salman says they're joining us from Atlanta. Cool. What do you do in Atlanta? I have a couple of friends there. But I really don't know a lot about the tech scene in Atlanta. Let me know what you do there. Raphael says hello from London. Well, hello to you too, Raphael. I love London. Such a cosmopolitan city. So many people from all around the world. I was last in London in February of last year. I was out in Canary Wharf doing some business. Yeah, but beautiful place. Love London. I've been there at least 5-6 times now. Mazen Ibrahim writes, hello from Long Island, new supporter. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And welcome to the stream. We always do our roll call, so it's good to see you checking in from Long Island. I actually just recently moved back from the New York area. I was out there for 2 years. I'm not sure if I actually made it out to Long Island. I'm trying to think. But obviously, a great part of the world to be out in the greater New York area. Himsteak says, staying as cool as I can inside. It's been over 100 this week. Oh, wow. That's a lot. And I imagine that it's humid, I'm guessing. But yeah, thank God for air conditioning. I do the same. I have to run the air conditioner in my part of the world basically 24/7. But good to hear that you're good, my friend. Hey, Firebrand J, good to see you again. I know you're a consistent supporter, so thank you so much. And yeah, you're also in Atlanta. So see, we're making connections already with people in the same cities. Zabas writes, currently working as a data analyst on some freelancing projects. Oh, good. It's always good to see a healthy freelance market, right? So good to see that you're getting some work out there. Let me see a couple more people here. In India, it's not considering it as heat wave. Every day it's crossing 45 degrees Celsius. Well, 45 degrees, that's a lot, isn't it? How is that not a heat wave? I mean, I'm only okay on my Celsius to Fahrenheit conversion, but for as far as I know, 45 is super hot, right? So that's not considered a heat wave? Huh. Help me understand that. All right. So let me go back to some of the questions. Thank you so much, guys. Really interesting to see where everybody's from. And if you're joining us late, please feel free to join in on the global roll call. It's never too late. Let us know the city, state, province that you're from. Helps the community, helps, just kind of me also understand where everybody's coming from. But I'm scrolling back up to my chat, and we're going to start off with our questions. So our friend Emil says, hello, sir. I have an important question. How do you approach applying for an internship? I'm in my second year international student in the Netherlands. Any tips on how do I score one? He goes on to write, so far I have been rejected 8 times and it's a struggle to find one. So any advice on the topic would be valuable. Okay. So Emil, first of all, I empathize with you. You know, finding a job, especially an internship, is never an easy thing. You know, as you can imagine, for most internships, you get a lot of applications from students. You know, lots of students are, you know, basically looking for some work. And I say that because I've been on the receiving end of those resumes. You know, I can put in an advertisement and I get a ton of resumes. Or when you go to a college like a career fair, you collect a ton of resumes. So the first thing that kind of jumps to mind is it's a numbers game, right? You have to apply. Well, excuse me. Sorry, let me take that back. First thing, you can't get discouraged, right? You got to keep a positive attitude when it comes to either looking for an internship or even in your job searches. I know some of you out there looking for jobs. You got to stay positive, right? Your mindset is very important. And quite frankly, I think it comes across in your interviews, whether you realize it or not. If you have a negative mindset and you're kind of down on the whole process and, oh, I'm going to blow this interview again, that comes across, believe it or not. So I want to encourage you to have a positive mindset towards this. Second thing, as I was saying, is it's a numbers game. 8 rejections, as tough as it may sound, doesn't strike me as a very high number. You know, maybe you want to give me a little bit more details there. Like, is that 8 rejections after an interview and you sent out a lot of applications, or like at what point are you getting rejected? Because that's kind of what you should consider, right? If you're not hearing back, then maybe there's something with your resume. If you are getting to those interviews, maybe there's something that you could be fine tuning in your interview skills, right? So let me know kind of what we're going on in the process. But it's a numbers game. You know, eight applications doesn't strike me as a high number. And also, you know, the last tip I'll give you is don't be afraid to go outside of the industries that you think you want, right? I see so many students get caught up in, well, I'm a finance major, so I have to go get a finance internship, right? Don't do that. If you're a data science major, the beauty of that is you can work in any industry. So apply to everything you can, even if you don't see yourself working in that field afterwards. Any experience at this point is valuable to you, right? So go ahead and apply, even though you may not be interested in the field. Who knows? Maybe you will become interested in the field, or worst case scenario, you still have an entry to put on your resume, right? So, you know, again, I'd like to hear a little bit more about how you're going about the job search, but apply as much as you can and apply to industries that you think may not be so great for you. Any experience is valuable for you at this point. So keep your head up, you know, stay positive, and good things will come to you. But thanks for the question, Emil. All right, let me keep on scrolling down to my next questions. I covered that one. Esihi? I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Some niche areas in DS to start a company. Okay. So I think that some of the consistent viewers on the chat know that I always hesitate to give people ideas, because the bottom line is that I believe in you. I believe that if you are somebody who's talented enough to start thinking about a data science agency, you're probably smart enough to come up with your own niche or your own idea, right? Now, I'm gonna share something with you to kind of get your mind moving. But you know, when you start doing like social media content online, like I've been doing, because I'm still new to this, I've only been at this a few weeks. You know, everybody talks about, well, you got to have a niche, you got to have a niche, you got to have a niche. And I was thinking about what is the biggest test you can develop for yourself to find your niche. So what I thought was, it's a question to you. I'm gonna put you up in front of 1,000 people, and you have to talk in front of 1,000 people, and you cannot stop for 30 minutes. You have to talk for 30 minutes. What is the topic that you would choose to talk about? Whatever that answer is your niche, because that's the topic that you're an expert in. It takes a lot to talk about something for 30 minutes, right? So whatever you would answer to that question of what would I say in front of 1,000 people if I'm required to talk nonstop for 30 minutes, that's your niche, right? Because that's what you know best. That's what you feel most comfortable with. that's potentially what you're most passionate about, right? And you guys know that I'm big on following your passion. So that would be my question back to you as Cece, that that using that type of thinking should lead you to your niche. But again, I mean, this is an excellent opportunity to exercise your own creativity, to pick your own niche, because you really shouldn't listen to some random guy on the internet. You should listen to what you want to do, what you're passionate about, what you think you're going to be best at, right? So I'll leave it there. If you want to follow up a question, feel free to do so. But that's really all the advice I'm willing to give, because you're a data scientist, you're creative. This is a great opportunity. Don't lose it. All right, going down my list. And by the way, I'm keeping an eye over here on my real time chat, and I see people coming in. So please feel free to tell us where you're from. Join in on the global roll call. I do that. Another reason I do that is because I want to keep everything accessible to people. You don't have to be some fantastic data scientist to participate in the chat. Just tell us where you're from. I'm just trying to be open and inclusive. And just let us know where you're from. All right. So next question, Aaron SVG. I am a bit self-conscious with my coding skills. I wouldn't be able to code from memory smoothly, since my projects are more often copying different code snippets that are already optimized. Okay. So tell me more about that, Aaron. Is this something that you are running into like during interviews? Like, are people asking you to do code interviews? Or are you talking about like code reviews in general, like in your job? Help me understand more about this. I think that what you're describing is actually a pretty natural feeling. But at the same time, I think it also just kind of speaks to your team and the culture of the company that you might be working on. Because, for example, I'm really big on pair programming. I'm really big on putting a couple of my data scientists together and then them working together to hack the code together. And that still doesn't mean you have to be like great at it. You can still be using like Stack Overflow or other snippets or whatever, as long as you have a good rationale for it. But I personally in my teams encourage us to be open about code. Or in some cases, I'll ask people to demo something, to walk us through a notebook that they're working on or something. And to do it in front of the whole team. Like we'll all get on the Teams call, we'll all be on video, and we'll just sit there and we'll work on the code together. So that's the culture that I create. So it might be different for you and your particular instance, but I have learned to just appreciate the quality of other people's code, because I've had some people who work for me who are like seriously talented at code. Like I think I do pretty good with Python. I hold my own with Python. But I've seen some people out there that can do some crazy things as far as like the coding contractions and like Lambda functions and like all that stuff. But I've learned to appreciate it, right? In the sense that there are people who are stronger coders out there than me. There's people who are weaker coders. I mean, but it doesn't matter. The point is that we're still writing the same code and still working at it together, right? So I understand that I'm expressing my own preferences and my own bias. Maybe you're not to that level of comfort. But the more you work with code, the more you kind of develop your skills, the more comfortable you're going to feel in those situations where you do have to write code, in front of others or for a test or whatnot or things like that. I will say that it feels that it's becoming a little bit more rare when people are asking you to do like real-time code in interviews. I've only run into that like a couple of times in my career. Most of the time it's going to be like a take-home exam and all that nonsense. But if I've missed something in my reply, feel free to put in a follow-up. But I think that's the best advice I can give you. It depends on the culture of your team, and it also depends on your skills. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get. So I hope that helps you, Aaron. Thanks for the question. Govind Chada writes, what work could a person do as a data scientist in a textile dyeing and manufacturing business? Oh, that's a good one. So Govind, are you asking this because you're involved in that? That's your line of work, or maybe your family owns a factory around this or something? Would love to hear the background on that. And then this is also a great question for the chat. Maybe somebody in the chat has some experience with this. Um, what I what I usually would tell a client in this situation, right? Because I get clients that approach me with similar things like this, is that you have to be willing to break out the different sections of your business and then see the different avenues that data science can bring, right? Because it'd be very easy to get focused in on only one solution. Um, I'm thinking right now because I'm always careful to protect different companies and clients that are either my clients or that I've spoken with. Um, but let's just say that they're a shipping company. They're a company that has a lot of ships, and they offered me a contract to come work for them because this company, the basics of the contract was that this company has a lot of ships all over the world, and their budget for fuel for the ships was $1 billion a year. They were spending $1 billion a year on these ships, on the fuel for the ships, and they wanted to reduce that number. They wanted to use data science to reduce that number. So they kept on talking to me about, well, these are the different routes that the ships takes, and this is the price, and this is like the different propellers that we use, right? Because there's a lot of technology around the propellers and all that, and sometimes we have to send a ship empty from here to here, and that costs us money, and so on and so forth. So they were thinking in terms of optimizing the routes and the usage of the ships, right? Like they could retrofit some of the ships or things like that, right? But what I introduced them to was that they were missing a whole other part of the equation of, well, how do you acquire the fuel to begin with, right? There's acquisition costs for the fuel, right? So they were willing to examine data science, but they were only looking at half their business. They weren't looking at the acquisition side of, well, maybe we could be doing something in the futures market to help us obtain the fuel, or where do we obtain the fuel? Where are the prices more favorable, as far as the future fluctuations of it? Can we use some indicators to help us reduce the cost on the pricing side, not just the usage side, right? Because they were only looking at the usage side. So that's what I would tell you, Govind, that you'd have to take that business and break it out completely. So I imagine that you obtain some textiles, you process them through your factory, the dyeing and the manufacturing, and then you sell them, right? You have to transport them somewhere. So to me, that's where I would start. I would start by looking at those three sections. How can I optimize the way I get my supplies? How can I optimize how I modify or manufacture? And then how can I optimize the sale or the movement of those products out of my factory, right? Because I don't know if you sell them or if you do this on contract or whatever. But that's what I would do if I was in your position. You be willing to look at all aspects of the business and how they can be optimized. Don't be focused on just, well, how can I make this one factory machine run better? Data science has so many more uses than that, right? So I hope that helped you. If you want to follow up, feel free to put it in the chat. But that's how I would approach it, and that's how I usually approach it with some of my corporate clients. Skylar1 writes, please tell me the best place to start learning this stuff officially in a structured way. I've only received on-the-job training so far. Okay, well, that on-the-job training sounds great. That's not very common in jobs nowadays, especially for data science. But I think it's wonderful because you're going to need some portion of on-the-job training. But Skylar, for someone like you, I have a video on my YouTube that talks about how I would study data science nowadays, the courses I would take, the books I would read, things along those lines. So that's where I would point you. It's 20 minutes long. I took the time to do it because I get these types of questions all the time. But I think that if you start with a resource like that, it will help you kind of figure out the different courses and books that you might want to take for a more academic approach to it. Okay, so I hope that helps you, Skylar. All right, keep looking at my chat over here. Lots of people joining in. Don't forget to tell us your city, state, and country, please. All right. Shuvo F writes, best way to study the statistical learning book. So Shuvo, I would also point you towards my student guide, my roadmap. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but I issue a coding challenge in that video. I'm gonna assume you haven't seen it because I do issue a coding challenge in that video. And it involves the statistical learning book. So I'm not going to say more than that, but I do have a challenge in there that I issue out to students. Nobody has come back. I will note that nobody has come back to me with the answers for that challenge, because I promise to help people if you come back to me with a notebook that meets the challenge. But I would point you towards that video because I'm also a fan of the statistical learning book. But please look at that. Please look at the coding challenge, and then I'm willing to help after that. Raphael Ath writes, I find your content very informative. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to make it accessible. Could we ask any questions? Of course. That's one of the reasons I do the live streams. I do the live streams mostly for the community. But yeah, if you have questions, please feel free to let us know. Okay, Karthi says 45 degrees is normal temp in summers in India. Oh my God, that is way too hot. And by the way, I live in the desert. I've lived in desert communities for a good part of my adult life, so I'm okay with hot temperatures. But 45 on a consistent basis it's a little too much. That's getting really up there. But I appreciate the info, Karthi. Amine Tani writes, hey from Beirut, Lebanon. Cool. Good to see you. Thanks so much for joining. I think you might be our first joiner from Lebanon, so thanks a lot for being here. Shuvo and Amine Tani both write, same question, how do I submit a question? You can submit it right here in this chat. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and put it in the chat, and I eventually make my way down. Sometimes we run out of time before I'm able to answer everybody's questions. We still have about 20 minutes. But yeah, if please go ahead and put your questions in the chat. Happy to. I try to help as much as I can. I'm not always going to promise to give you answers because sometimes I got to push back on you guys. Or sometimes I'm a fan of the Socratic method, and the Socratic method is not giving an answer, but giving you a question of, well, what do you think the answer should be, right? So sometimes I will do that, but I will try to help as much as I can. Or sometimes I might take your question and make a video out of it because it requires a little bit of a longer explanation. But yeah, please go ahead and submit questions in the chat. So our friend Shiheb says, I work as a data engineer. I'm still a junior, but I always do my best to evolve. What is the best way to build an online portfolio? What are the most important sections to present? So great question. And I think that you were saying that you were the freelance data engineer, because I'm trying to figure out why you would need to expand your portfolio if you're already in a position, right? If you're in a position, try to stay with it as long as you can, right? But I think you mentioned you were freelance. So focus. So as I mentioned in the opening note, a data science team is still going to be fairly small, and you're still going to have the different roles that the data science lifecycle requires, right? So you mentioned like data engineering. The next role might, in the life cycle, the next step might be like an EDA phase or even a visualization phase. And then after that, you might go into a modeling phase, right? And then after that, you might have another visualization phase, right? Depending on what methodology you follow. So if you want to expand your portfolio, I would focus on the things that you are currently not. So if you are currently a data engineer and you think you can consistently get contracts with that, or you feel comfortable in that role, well, great. Focus your portfolio on the modeling side, right? Because that way you're expanding, you're demonstrating your range. You're demonstrating to say, well, I'm not just a data pipelines guy. I can also do modeling when needed, right? Or I'm also pretty good with my visualization. So here's a couple of visualization examples, right? So that's what I would do if I was in your position. Focus on what you don't have. That way people see your range, and your resume can say, oh, he currently is a proven data engineer working here. And then below that, you can say, the person reading your resume can say, oh, and he also demonstrated some modeling skills here, or he submitted some really good visualizations or something like that, right? So that's what I would focus on. I hope that helps you. Building a portfolio can be a personal thing, but, just show your range. That's kind of the whole point of a portfolio. Okay, so Emil has provided some more detail on his previous question. 8 applications and no response. 1 internship got to the interview, and they made me make a prediction model in a minute 30, which is not feasible. Okay. All right, so it sounds like you're asking 2 questions there in one, Emil. So let me kind of split those apart. 8 applications and no response. I know that you put a lot of work into those applications and you were really hoping to hear back, but 8 applications doesn't really strike me as a high number. So I think that, you're perfectly okay to keep on applying and kind of raise that number. It just doesn't seem like that's a high enough concentration to really say that, you're being rejected constantly, right? I think that's just bad variance you might be experiencing. So take that into consideration, but I would apply to a lot more than 8 positions. Again, especially at the internship level where any experience is valuable, right? All right, so the second part is they made me make a prediction model in a minute 30, which was not feasible. Actually, I just realized I'm reading that as a minute 30, or do you mean an hour and a half? Let me know what you mean by that. If you're talking about a minute 30 or an hour and a half. But look, I mean, part of the data science skill, and really part of a scientist skill overall, is knowing when something is not possible. So if you walk into an interview and you read the requirements and you know that you don't have enough time, say so. Say it ahead of time. Say that your experience as a scientist lets you know that this is a bad idea to attempt this, so I'm not going to do it. Right? There are bad experiments out there, right? Not every experiment is a good idea. So if you really feel strongly about that, I mean, I don't know the details here, but if you really do feel strongly about that, then say so and refuse to do it, right? You want to do it in an educated way where you're demonstrating that you're exercising your judgment as a scientist, of course, right? You don't want to say it in a negative way. But if you really do feel strongly that it's not possible to finish a particular exercise you've been assigned, then don't do it, right? And you'll do that in the corporate world. I do that all the time with my stakeholders. If somebody approaches me with an algorithm and they got to have it in 3 months and I can't deliver it in 3 months because it's not enough time, I'll tell them that, right? Don't make promises you can't keep. So you can exercise that same type of thinking in interviews if you really do feel strongly about it. So I hope that helps, Emil. If there's more detail, feel free to let us know. Hey, Dennis, I scored that founder's internship and also successfully bargained for a data analyst intern position, even though I'm doing the same work. Should have I bargained for a data science internship? Well, first of all, congratulations. Wonderful. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time, 6 feet, feel free to correct me here. But this is an internship he applied for, where he's going to be working directly with the CEO and CTO. So congratulations, my friend. Really happy to hear that you landed that. Hopefully some of the items in the chat help, but really glad for you. Congratulations. Should have I bargained for a data science internship? Okay, so 2 things, right? You might have missed my opening note because I know you said you were waiting on YouTube, so sorry about that. But in the opening note, I talked about how most data science teams are still small, right? So no matter where you go, you're still going to be expected to do different roles. So don't be discouraged just because, oh, well, I'm just going to be a data analyst. I'm not going to be doing. No, the reality is that they're probably going to need your help still on some modeling or some visualizations or some other aspects of data science. Most teams are small enough where they can't afford to say, oh, well, we can't ask him to do that because he's a data analyst. Let's leave him alone. You're going to be asked to do other things. Some of those other things may not always be pleasant, but you're going to be asked to do other things. That's just the nature of the size of teams nowadays. So don't worry about it. Don't worry that, oh, I'm not going to be able to do any data science work because that's not what my title is. You'll probably be used on other things. That's just the nature of the business right now. And the second thing I'll tell you is that bargaining during these types of times, it's a delicate game, right? I think it's great that you went for the data analyst position, but you want to make sure you don't go a step too far, right? It is possible to go a step too far when it comes to these types of arrangements and these discussions and all that, right? So I think you did pretty well. The internship value is in being there and in seeing how things work in the real world and having that on your resume. So you don't want to go a step too far and maybe, come off as being a little bit greedy or kind of leaving a bad taste in people's mouth. Because at the end of the day, you have to work with them, right? You have to complete the internship. You've only landed it at this point. You still got to go in there and prove yourself and do a good job, right? Hopefully, you're going to do that. You're gonna shine in there, and then you're going to be relying on them to give you a reference for your next job, right? So you want to make sure you don't go a step too far in your demands, right? So I commend you for getting it. I think you're in a good position. I think you're still going to be able to do data science roles or more of that dedicated items. But now it's up to you to go in there and do the best you can, do a good job. By the way, this week I did release some shorts on how to have a good internship. So I hope you caught those. They're on my Instagram and on my YouTube. But now it's up to you. You got to go in there and prove yourself, right? Landing the job is great, but that's only step one. So I wish you the best during the summer. I think you're going to do great. You sound like a smart guy. So good job on getting it, and go in there and do the best you can. But thanks for the update. Really glad to hear that for you. Okay, so Emil says, I will take your advice into consideration and keep applying. Well, good, Emil. Like I said, keep your head up. Positive attitude during all job searches. I know it's not easy. I know job searching is hard, but keep your head up. You're going to be just fine. 6 feet underground. Okay, goes on to right. Do you think they will value my idea in the business considering it's a startup? Absolutely, especially because it's a startup. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have worked for startups or 6 feet. Maybe this is your first experience with a startup. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, the beauty of startups is that they move so quickly, right? You guys can pivot so quickly. And because of that, sometimes they do some hiring that's maybe not so great, right? I remember the last time I worked for a startup, again, I can't say too many things because I want to protect my clients. But the last time I worked for a startup, it was a Bitcoin startup, and I think the entire team was like 10 people, but they were doing well. They had pretty high sales. They were offering a product related to crypto. Again, I'm trying to protect my clients. But the business development guy that they had hired wasn't so great. It was as we would say in the U.S., it was his first rodeo, so he had some trouble. And so sometimes, I was brought in to be one of their interface designers. I was the primary designer on the interfaces for one of their products. But you're sitting there, a startup, you're going to be working all kinds of different late hours. So we were sitting there like on a Friday night. It was 10 p.m. The company had just received this offer for a new purchase. Somebody had sent a contract for a potential purchase. The biz dev guy was reading it, and I thought he was misreading some sections. So next thing you know, we were just all like the four of us, like myself, the biz dev guy, and two of the founders, were sitting there kicking this contract back and forth. And I was helping them because I have a business background. My undergraduate is in international business. So I was giving input on this contract and why the contract was a bad idea. There were a couple things in there that made the contract a bad idea. So I was essentially doing the role of the biz dev guy, not just because, he wasn't so great, but also because that's what you do in a startup. In a startup, you kind of sit around and talk and toss different ideas around. And if you come on a good idea, you can act on it, right? You can move it. So 6 feet, I think you're going to be in a good position there, especially because it's a startup. You want to make sure that you're listening and you're taking in information. But yeah, if you see an opportunity to give good input and to give your view, go for it. I think that they are more likely to listen to you in a startup than if you were like in a bigger corporation or a more formal internship program. So great question, but good luck with it. Okay, so our friend Himsteak writes, to your point about working in different industries, do you think it's important to build a portfolio around an industry? Is it okay to have a range of projects from different industries? Oh, I love the question, Himsteak. I love this question because I've been formulating a video in the back of my mind. I really want to do a video on this topic. And the topic that I'm thinking about, or the way I want the video to play out, is that I think it is super important to have exposure to a variety of industries. And I mean that both from your perspective, because you're talking from a perspective of somebody who's applying, but also from my perspective as a hiring manager. Hiring managers should want to hire from different industries. And the reason I say that, everything I just said is rooted in domain bias, right? If you got, for those of you that are further along in your data science studies, you know about bias. And to me, when somebody asks me, what's the purest definition of data science? The purest definition of data science is the removal of bias from your decisions, right? That's what data science is. You're removing bias and you're letting the data make the decisions, right? You're making data-driven decisions, right? Which is what we should all be doing, right? Showing that range that you're talking about, Himsteak, and also as a manager hiring from that range helps with the domain bias, right? It helps kind of reduce the risk of that. So again, I don't want to say too much, but I recently had a conversation with a group of executives. And I'm going to make it up. Let's say they were in the restaurant business, right? I don't want to say who the client was, but let's just say it was in the restaurant business. They were talking to me about how they were looking for a data scientist, but they were having trouble people who knew the restaurant business. And I told them that was a massive mistake, right? That's a massive mistake to only say, well, I just want data scientists that have worked for other restaurants. Because all you're doing there is you're inheriting their bias, right? If you hire somebody, if you hire a brand new data scientist, and they tell you, and a couple months later when you're working on a project, they tell you, oh no, that'll never work. We tried that at that other place and it didn't work there. Massive loss, right? Massive fail, right? You have failed in your hiring if you ever hear that, because then you're not open to new things, right? You're letting people bring their previous bias into your business. How can you break the industry norms if you're just following what the rest of the industry is doing, right? So I think it's a good idea for you to have that range in your portfolio, Himsteak. Have that range and then emphasize that range, because you might have to sell yourself a little bit more during those interviews. If you're going to go interviews, let's just say at a car company, right? At an auto manufacturer, you might have to sell yourself in that way and say, yes, you're absolutely right. I come from the textile industry. I studied business in undergrad, and my last freelance contract was working for an airline. So I don't know a thing about the auto industry, but that makes me somebody who's going to take a fresh look at your data. I'm going to bring a fresh set of ideas because I'm not biased by other car companies or other previous positions, right? So I view it as a selling point for you to be able to say that, to say, here's my portfolio, and I am proud that I do not have experience in your industry because I'm going to be your freshest perspective because I'm going to be your least biased perspective, right? So I hope that helps you, Hemsteak. I love the idea. Keep going in that direction. Okay, so Mazim Ibrahim 88. Mazim, did you tell us where you were from? I don't think I saw that. But if you're joining us late in the chat, I see a lot of late joiners, which is great. I love seeing people join in. Please let us know the city, state that you're from, city, state, country that you're from. Love hearing about it. Okay, so Mazim writes, I was focusing on software engineering, but seeing how saturated it is, I wanted to do more to get more options, so I am new to DS. What's a good first project in order to score an internship? Oh, Mazen. So lots to unpack in your statement. For those of you that know my content, you know how much I feel that you should be following your passions. So Mazen, I got to tell you, buddy, I don't see that in your statements. Because again, the goal isn't to score a good internship. The goal is to get experience in something that you're interested in, something that you want to do. And you mentioned this shift from software engineering to data science. Well, so I'm getting the impression that you're shifting based on the job market. Try to not do things in your career for money. That will never make you happy. You'll never be satisfied in those roles. You'll always be looking for the next role, the next thing. So for what I'm getting from this is that software engineering was not your passion, but you went it anyways. The job market's too tight because there's so many people in there. And now you want to chase the next market where there might be more jobs. Right? Please try to not do that, right? I'm not just saying that for the data science industry. I'm saying that for you because if you jump from field to field like that, especially fields that are so different like that, you're never going to find something that you really want to dedicate your life to, right? So please refer back to the video I have out there, the data science roadmap for students. It's on my YouTube. It's completely free. I don't pitch anything on it. I don't make anything on it. But, I'm really big on following your passions. So please refer back to that. Please try to read the book Mastery by Robert Greene. It's one of the books that had a big influence on my life. But again, the goal should be to find your life's work, not just to find whatever market is less saturated or things like that. Okay? So good luck to you, my friend. Mustafa, our friend in Rabat, writes, Hi, Dennis. Is this going to be recorded? Yes, it is. I am recording this, and I'm going to put this up on my YouTube. And Mustafa, I believe you mentioned this in the comments, and I got another comment similar to this also. I need to do a better job of advertising when these replays go up because a lot of people do watch the replays. It's surprising how many people watch these afterwards. Like some people are still watching my live streams from like 2 weeks ago. I need to do a better job of showing that on Instagram and telling people on Instagram when they are ready to go. I haven't done a good job of that. So yes, this is being recorded. I'm going to put it up on YouTube. I'm going to put it up on Instagram. I always make clips from these live streams. But yes, it will be up there, and I will post a note on Instagram when it's on YouTube. So thank you for the reminder. 6 Feet writes, also, this AI is going to be my undergraduate project. Do you think this is a good idea? Are you talking about your internship here? Your internship's going to be part of your project? Let me know what you mean by that, okay? Hey, Dennis, I'm a high school senior applying for a degree in data science, and I want to go into DS to do some good in the world. Okay, cool. So I'm curious on two things. What is the average day of a data scientist like? And how does data science provide value to people? Okay. I have 2 years of experience in satellite imagery and GIS, but I'm not sure how similar that is to DS. Okay. Oh my gosh, it's already 8:58. Oh no, Instagram is going to cut us off here in a couple of minutes. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry that I let the time get away from us. But I always like to make a clean cut in these streams because Instagram will immediately cut us off at 1 hour. So I'm sorry that we have to wrap up here. Amine Tani, you're asking some really good questions. Feel free to send me a direct message and I will answer as best I can. And I cannot tell you how guilty I feel when I see all these other comments in the chat. I'm so sorry that we weren't able to get to it. But again, Instagram does cut all streams off at 1 hour. I wish there was a way to change that, but it's their policy. So I want to wrap up here. If you'd like to join me again on Sunday, I stream every Thursday and Sunday at 1500 GMT. Please come back. Please ask your question. I will do my best to get to it. If you want to kind of tell me ahead of time, hey, I came back because you missed my question, I will try to get to it at the very beginning. But I hope that you continue in your data science studies. I hope that you find your calling in data science because, again, I am so passionate about it and I want others to be passionate about it too. But thank you so much for attending. Really appreciate the support that you guys give to my content. We've had a lot of new people joining the channel. Really happy to see people from all around the world. So please stay safe, take care of your families, try to stay cool in the air conditioning, but really glad to see everybody. And I'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody.